Oh, Randy here. Had opportunity to think about some things over the last number of weeks, last number of months, and things were brought back to mind again just a few days ago. Um, the events that happened over this past year, particularly the events that happened in regards to the election, and I mean that election back just a few months ago. And I didn't do much to watch the coverage of that election. Maybe that was because of what happened in an election about 20 years ago, where the results were very well. We watched the results until we were way in the middle of the night. My wife and I did, and then there was results that were just very undetermined. We knew that it wouldn't be determined that night, and then it wasn't determined for a few months. So I guess in this past election, I purposed in my heart not to watch a lot. Um, and for various reasons that I won't go into right now. But I remember in the morning getting kind of a sense the way that the election had gone, and coming in the morning as I like to do, and being a part of our prayer gathering at our church Harvest Time here in Eau Claire. And as I was thinking of how this election had gone and what was going to be the result of that, plus the change that appeared that was going to be happening, which I felt like was unfair and that I could not control. As I prayed that morning, I remember hearing God say to me, "Well, you do understand the just shall live by their faith." And it's like, that was not the answer I wanted to hear from God. I won't go into exactly what it said, but the words I thought about God at that point were not very kind, not very kind at all. The just shall live by their faith. And I thought, God, that's not right. That's not fair. You shouldn't be asking that of me or your people in this time, these challenging times. And immediately the thought came to me that is a quote that you probably have heard before: a faith that cannot, that has not been tested, a faith that has not been tested is a faith that cannot be trusted. And it's like, I didn't like that any better because I knew that God was right in that. That what he was doing in these days is he was testing our faith because he wants us to have greater faith. He wants us to know that through these days that we don't understand what's all going on, and may not particularly like what's going on. It doesn't matter whether I like it or not. What matters is that I'm trusting in him in the middle of those things, letting faith work in us. James says some very practical things that way too. He says, you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. The testing of your faith produces perseverance. It produces patience. As you might have heard, somebody has said that's a prayer that you should never ask for. Never ask for patience, because God will do his best to see that situations come into your life that will help you develop patience. But he says, let faith have its perfect work, that you may develop patience, perseverance, and that perseverance must continue its work, so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking in anything. Not lacking in anything, which may be where God is really bringing us to. He wants us to understand that we need to have complete faith in him in these situations, in these times, in these situations that are beyond our control. He wants us to have continuous faith in him, looking unto him, looking unto him, the saving God and the one that can help through the situations that we're in, even though we may not like what's going on, even though we may not know what the end is going to be in the situations that we are going through, in the situations that may be happening in the world around us. God does know what's happening in those situations, and we can put our faith and completeness in him. Now, I bring you to a few words here from Oswald Chambers as he talks about this. He says, "We do not expect God to take us to heaven on flowery beds of ease." Well, I think at times I do. I really do. And yet we act as if we do. I must realize, at least we say that, but then in our actions, well, we really think that. I'm honest to admit, that's what I really want. I want it to be flowery. I want everything to go really well. But he continues on here. He says, I must realize that my obedience, even in the smallest detail of my life, has all of the omnipotent power of the grace of God behind it. If I will do my duty, not for duty's sake, but because I believe God is engineering my circumstances, then at the very point of my obedience, all of the magnificent grace of God is mine through the glorious atonement by the cross of Christ. So God is doing his best through these days that he is asking for greater faith from us, because it is at that moment that we have to have faith that we must depend on his grace, not on our strength. We must depend on his grace. And again, as Chambers says here, the power of grace, of his omnipotence, comes in that situation when we realize that God is engineering our circumstances for our good as we love him. Hope that's a word that's encouraging to you today. Oh, you, like me, of little faith. So thanks for taking some time with me today. Like, subscribe, share, comment. I'm just so glad you've joined me here today. Have a great rest of your day.